I didn't lose her in one day. It started, of all things, with an apple pie. Cole Harris lived next door. Had for nearly a decade. Our houses looked like they'd been copy-pasted, same cracked driveway, same sagging fence between us, same stubborn patch of grass we both pretended wasn't dead. We weren't friends, but we weren't strangers either. Swapped tools now and then. Cleared each other's sidewalks after snowstorms. He was a decent neighbor, quiet, polite, dependable. His wife, Maggie, passed away that spring. Pancreatic cancer. Fast and merciless. One week she was out trimming her roses. The next we were standing in uncomfortable silence at a funeral, staring at a closed casket and pretending any of it made sense. After that, Cole fell off the map. Not literally, but close. His yard went wild. The mailbox sagged under the weight of days. The porch light stayed off, even at night. Sometimes I'd see him, hunched in a hoodie, moving like the world had grown too heavy to carry. Chloe, my wife, noticed before I did. She's always been the one with the soft heart, the one who sees what others miss. He looks awful, she said one morning while unpacking groceries. Like he hasn't eaten in days. I looked out the window. He was just a shadow crossing his porch. I'm gonna bring him something, she added, pulling apples from a paper bag. That night, she baked one of her pies. Her grandmother's recipe. Real crust. Cinnamon and nutmeg. She wrapped it in foil, still warm. Just for a few minutes, she told me, tying her hair back. He probably needs company. Sure, I said. He probably does. 10 minutes turned into 30. Then an hour. When she came back, she looked different. Not in a big way, just flushed cheeks, a far-off look in her eyes. She told me Cole had put on one of Maggie's old records. That they talked about road trips and favorite bands. That he said the pie reminded him of May. I smiled and told her it was kind of her. And it was. But something about the way she said his name stayed with me. Soft. Familiar. Like it belonged on her tongue. In the weeks that followed, she went over there again. Then again. Always with something in her hands. Banana bread. Soup. Some leftovers she didn't want to waste. Each visit stretched a little longer than the last. I told myself it was just kindness. Grief was heavy, and she was helping carry it. But kindness started to look a lot like routine. She began brushing her hair before heading over. A spritz of perfume. Tiny earrings she hadn't worn in months. Not for church, not for dinner, not for me. I noticed because I used to be the reason she wore them. One night, she stood in front of the hallway mirror and smoothed out her blouse. She smiled, not at me, not at herself, but at a thought I wasn't part of. Just want to look presentable, she said. It didn't sound like a lie, but it didn't sound like the truth either. She came back that night humming something, smiling to herself. She smelled like cinnamon and something else. A cologne I didn't recognize. I didn't ask. Instead, I washed the dishes while she talked about how Cole had started keeping a journal. About how they both liked Van Morrison. We both love his voice, she said. Both. That word lingered longer than the rest. It wasn't that I didn't trust her. It's that I didn't recognize her. She laughed differently now. A lighter laugh. She hummed when folding laundry. She came home glowing in a way that had nothing to do with porch lights or street lamps. And the worst part? She seemed happier. Just not with me. There are things that don't make noise when they fall apart. They don't shout. They don't break glass. They just change temperature. The silence between us didn't grow louder. It grew colder. And Chloe kept going back to Cole's house. Always with something in her hands. And less of herself in ours. At first, I kept telling myself it was normal. Helping a grieving neighbor. That's the kind of thing Chloe would do. She's always been better at comfort than I ever was. When friends lost someone, she was the one bringing casseroles and handwritten notes. That was her way. But something was different this time. Not in what she did, but how she did it. There was a kind of attention to it. An energy I hadn't seen in a while. She'd fix her hair before leaving, swipe on lip gloss, double-check her phone. Once, I watched her pause at the door, run her fingers through her bangs and smile at the mirror. She caught me looking. What? She asked. Nothing, I said. You look nice. She gave a quick nod and left. That night, when she came back, she smelled like the cologne again. Just faint, like maybe she'd leaned in too close or maybe he'd hugged her goodbye. I didn't say a word. Just listened while she talked about how Cole had been listening to more records lately. How they both liked old Motown. How he'd finally started opening up. We sat on the porch, she said, stirring her tea. It felt good. You can tell he doesn't talk to anyone. I nodded. I'm glad he has you. She smiled. Small. Grateful. But she didn't meet my eyes. That was the part that stuck with me. She used to meet my eyes when she smiled. It's funny how fast your gut picks up on things your brain tries to ignore. I've never been the jealous type. I spent years in the Navy, deployments, months apart, missed birthdays, late-night calls from overseas. You learn to live with distance. Learn to read the silences. You learn that trust is everything. And yet, this felt different. Not because she was hiding something, but because she wasn't trying to hide anything at all. She moved through the house the same way she always had, made coffee, folded laundry, asked if I needed anything from the store. But there was a softness missing. A kind of warmth I hadn't realized was gone until I noticed how cold the quiet had become. I remember one afternoon, she crossed something off the fridge calendar, dinner with Rachel, and replaced it with help Cole, attic. No conversation. No explanation. Just a quiet swap. That night, I erased it. She never mentioned it. I started noticing the patterns. Not her words. Her habits. The way she looked at her phone and then smiled, putting it down screen first. The way she stopped asking about my day. The way she'd come back from his house humming, but sit through our dinners in silence. I wasn't angry. Not yet. What I felt was worse than anger. It was that slow, sinking awareness that you're being edged out of your own life. That you're still there, same chair, same table, same bowl of reheated soup, but something shifted, and you're no longer part of the story that's unfolding. I started keeping track. Not out of suspicion, at least that's what I told myself, but because I needed to see it all laid out. I'd never been a journal guy. I kept things in my head. Mental notes. Lists that faded when they were no longer useful. But that changed the night she came home humming the same tune I'd heard her hum 2 days earlier. Said she'd been running errands. But I'd seen her car parked outside Kohl's for nearly 2 hours. That night, I pulled out an old black notebook from the drawer. The kind I used to use for oil change records for serial numbers on appliances. I gave it a new job. Entry 1. Thursday said she was going to the store. Car was outside Kohl's for 1 hour, 42 minutes. Returned with a receipt for gum. It felt strange, at first. Like I was betraying her trust, or worse, betraying my own instincts. But the truth is, I wasn't spying. I was documenting. Not guesses. Not hunches. Facts. She kept moving through the house like everything was fine. Made toast. Sorted the mail. Hummed while brushing her teeth. But I saw it now. Every smile after a visit. Every changed calendar plan. Every time her sweater smelled like something that wasn't mine. I wasn't trying to catch her. I was trying to prove to myself that I wasn't imagining it. Because the truth wasn't loud. It wasn't obvious. It was quiet. Subtle. Like a radio playing in the next room. But it was there. And I had to listen. I didn't tell anyone. Not my brother. Not the guys from work. Not even the neighbor across the street who always asked how Chloe was doing with that concerned tilt of her head. I kept it all inside. I'm good at that. Years in the service will teach you how to keep your face steady, even when your stomach's tying itself in knots. And that's exactly what it felt like, knots. Small ones, at first. Easy to ignore. But they tightened, day by day, until I could feel them in my sleep. She was slipping away. Not running, not hiding, just slipping. Quietly, gracefully, like someone backing out of a room without turning on the light. She still talked to me. Still asked what I wanted for dinner, whether I needed more coffee. But everything she said felt rehearsed. Like reading lines from a script she'd already grown tired of. One morning, she walked in with new jeans and lipstick I hadn't seen in years. They were on sale, she said with a shrug. Felt like I needed a little refresh. They look good, I told her. She wore them the next time she went to Kohl's. I watched from the window as she paused by the hallway mirror, tugged lightly at her sleeve, then checked her phone, twice in under a minute. She ran her fingers through her hair like she wasn't sure it was sitting just right. No rush, I said as she grabbed her keys. She smiled. I won't be long. But she always was. I knew her tells better than anyone. I'd known her through deployments and base moves, through months of silence and short phone calls from countries whose names blurred together. I knew the way her voice changed when she missed me. I knew the way her hands fidgeted when she was worried. Now, I was learning something else. Distance doesn't always come with shouting. Sometimes it wears perfume and hums songs that aren't yours. She came back that night humming again. I asked, "What song is that?" She smiled. Something Cole played. He's got a great vinyl collection. She looked so happy. And I didn't say a word. But inside, I felt something start to shift, something cold, something still. Not anger. Not even sadness. Just clarity. The kind of clarity that sneaks up on you after enough little moments pile up. Moments like her phone buzzing when she's in the shower, and the screen lighting up with his name. Moments like her skipping movie night to drop something off, and coming back smelling like spice and cedar. Moments like hearing her say "we" when she talked about him, and "he" when she talked about me. I didn't want a confrontation. I didn't want a scene. What I wanted, what I needed, was the truth. So I kept writing. Entry 2. Sunday, said she was going for a walk. Wore mascara. Took her crossbody purse. Returned 2 hours later with just a reusable water bottle. It wasn't about catching her in the act. It wasn't about some dramatic revelation. It was about having something real. Something I could look at when doubt tried to creep in. Because doubt has a way of gaslighting you, especially when you're being lied to gently. When the smile's still calm, when dinner's still made, when she still asks if you want anything from the store. But her questions didn't sound curious anymore. They sounded polite. Like she was keeping up appearances in a house that no longer felt like home. One night, she left her phone on the kitchen counter while she showered. She never did that. That phone was practically an extension of her hand lately. I didn't touch it. Didn't open it. Just sat down across from it and watched the screen light up once, then fade to black. When she came back, her hair damp, she picked it up, read something quickly, then smiled to herself. Just a little smile. A flicker. Then, like always, she flipped it over, face down. Entry 3. Tuesday, phone buzzed while she was in the shower. Name, Cole. She smiled after reading. No explanation. I wasn't planning revenge. I wasn't going to blow up our life. I just needed to know if I was still in it. If I was still being chosen. And every entry told me what I didn't want to admit. I wasn't. I used to think silence meant peace. Now I know better. The silence in our house had weight. It wasn't calm, it was thick. Heavy like fog, pressing down on everything. Chloe would hum sometimes, usually after coming back from Cole's. But it wasn't the kind of humming you do when you're folding laundry or cooking dinner. It was soft and private, like a secret she was holding behind her teeth. She never hummed around me. Not anymore. I still wrote everything down. Quietly, carefully. I wasn't obsessing. I was documenting. There's a difference. Entry 4. Friday, said she had to return a blouse. Was gone 1 hour, 50 minutes. Store receipt time 6:12 p.m. She left the house at 4 o'clock. She didn't lie outright. It wasn't her style. But she left blanks, spaces I wasn't invited to fill. I'd come home from work and find her phone already charging, face down. Dinner half made. Her keys on the counter next to a receipt from somewhere she never mentioned. Once, I asked what she did that afternoon. Oh, just errands, she said. That was it. No detail. No warmth. Just the verbal equivalent of a door closing. It's not that I thought she was sleeping with him. I wasn't even sure it had gone that far. It was worse. She'd already given him her attention, her thoughts, her laughter, and all I had left were the leftovers. She once told me, years ago, back when we were still moving every few months, chasing duty stations and deployment schedules, that she loved being married to a soldier. She said it made her feel like she mattered, like she had a role to play in something big. You're like a movie, she whispered once after I got home from Afghanistan. You walk through the door and it's like everything snaps into focus. I didn't know what to say then. I was too tired, too relieved just to be back. But now, I thought about that night all the time, because I wasn't a movie anymore. Now I was a husband in sweatpants, stirring his coffee while she smiled into her phone. Cole gave her that feeling again, the intensity, the story, the role. And me? I was just the routine, the coffee maker, the man who folded the laundry right but didn't make her feel seen anymore. She never said that, but she didn't have to. Her absence filled in the blanks louder than any confession could. Entry 5, Monday, said she was helping Cole organize books. Returned at 8:13 p.m., smelled like his cologne. Didn't mention it. Hummed Into the Mystic while washing her hands. That song used to be ours. Now it was theirs. I never confronted her. I didn't ask. I didn't accuse. That's not how I work. I don't like chaos. I don't like mess. But I pay attention. That's what saved me in the field. And that's what was saving me now. One night, she erased a calendar note for dinner with my sister and replaced it with Help Cole photos. She didn't even look at me when she did it. Just crossed one life out and penciled in another. That night, I deleted the entry. She never asked why it was gone, and I never told her. But I added to the notebook. Entry 6, Wednesday, canceled dinner with family. Chose to spend evening at Cole's. No explanation. Didn't ask if I minded. It was happening in slow motion. Not an explosion. Not a betrayal with flashing lights and slammed doors. More like a quiet migration. A woman gradually shifting her weight toward another man, until one day she wasn't leaning back anymore. She was gone, even when she was still in the room. And I was just beginning to understand what that meant. I didn't plan to hear it. It was supposed to be a simple errand. A tool, one I'd lent to Cole months ago when his shed door jammed. He said he'd return it that weekend. Never did. And I never reminded him. Back then, it didn't feel important. That morning, Chloe said she was going to the farmer's market across town. Just for an hour, she told me, giving me a kiss on the cheek like it was muscle memory, not affection. Her bag was already packed. She wore that soft blouse she always put on when heading to Cole's. 10 minutes after she left, I was in the garage, staring at the empty spot in my toolbox. I told myself it didn't mean anything. Still, I grabbed the box and walked across the backyard, not through the front gate. Everyone knew the front gate squeaked. The back way was quieter. Familiar. Years ago, we used to pass tools over that fence. Now, I ducked behind it like a stranger. When I got to the side of Cole's house, I stopped. I heard voices. Hers first, Chloe, soft, light, like she was speaking a memory. Then her laugh. Not polite. Not nervous. That laugh she used to save for the quiet parts of the night when I told her dumb jokes just to hear it. Then Cole, speaking low. I couldn't hear the words, but the tone was gentle. Intimate. I stayed still, my back to the wall, hands tied around the metal case. Then I heard her say something I'll never forget. I miss feeling unknown, she said. She was close to an open window now. Her voice carried. Back when he was deployed, everything felt intense, like it mattered. Like I mattered. I'd wait months for a call. A letter. I was scared, but I felt important. Cole mumbled something. I didn't catch it. Then Chloe again, even softer. Now it all feels so flat. So predictable. He makes his coffee. Folds his shirts. Tells me he's okay, even when I know he's not. But he doesn't need me. Not like before. Silence. Then she added, I'm not saying I want the chaos back. I want to feel seen again. I couldn't breathe. Then came the final blow, the one that emptied my chest. I don't think I love him anymore, she whispered. At least, not the way I used to. That was it. Not the perfume. Not the calendar changes. Not the silence at dinner. That sentence. That soft, honest sentence. I didn't move. I stood there for what felt like forever, gripping the toolbox like it might anchor me to the ground. I didn't knock. I didn't drop off the tool. I turned and walked back the way I came, through the tall grass that divided our yards, past the shed where I used to fix her bike, through the back door of a house that suddenly didn't feel like mine. When I stepped inside, the walls felt different, quieter, aware. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I opened the notebook. Entry 17, Saturday, said she went to the market. Was in Cole's kitchen. I heard her say she doesn't think she loves me anymore. I read it 3 times before closing the cover. Later that night, she came home with a bunch of tulips and a receipt for fresh peaches. She said the market was packed and took longer than expected. I nodded. No problem. She smiled. And that smile sealed it. Because it was the smile of someone who still thought the game was secret. But I wasn't guessing anymore. I knew. The next morning, everything looked the same. Same kitchen light. Same cluttered counter. Same sound of the toaster popping up before Chloe poured her coffee into the mug I gave her on our 7th anniversary, the one with the chipped rim she always said made it feel lived in. She moved through the house like nothing had shifted. Like she hadn't stood in someone else's kitchen and said she didn't love me anymore. She asked if I wanted toast. I said sure. She smiled again. The same smile. Easy. Casual. Like we were still us. That's when I knew. She would never tell me. Not because she was cruel, but because she still believed I didn't know. She thought if she smiled the right way and kept the rhythm going, toast, calendar notes, evening text with the screen turned down, I'd never feel the crack in the foundation. But I wasn't broken. I was wide awake. That afternoon, I walked into the garage and opened the locked drawer beneath the workbench. Inside was everything she'd never thought to look at. Service papers, car titles, appliance warranties. I pulled out our financial records. The house deed. A folder of passwords I kept for emergencies. I didn't touch her things. I just took what was mine. The next day, while she ran errands, I sat in a quiet corner at the bank. The woman behind the desk had calm eyes and didn't ask questions. I opened a private account in my name and moved exactly half of our savings into it. Only half. Not out of fairness. Out of strategy. Too much and she'd notice. Enough, and I'd be safe. I went home and finished folding laundry like it was any other Tuesday. 15 minutes later, she came in with 2 bottles of wine and a grocery bag. Thought we deserved a little something nice, she said, setting them on the counter. I smiled. Good idea. That night, she cooked dinner. The first time in weeks. Chicken thighs with roasted carrots. We sat across from each other like nothing had changed. She poured the wine, told a story about a cashier forgetting to scan her milk. I laughed where I was supposed to. Then she looked up at me with those hopeful eyes and asked, "What if we took a weekend trip? Just us. Somewhere quiet. Might help us reset." I looked at her. Really looked. The woman I married was still in there. Somewhere. But I didn't trust her anymore. Still, I smiled. Yeah, that sounds good. She looked relieved. Maybe even excited. But she wouldn't get the chance. The next morning, I drove across town to a small office tucked behind a strip mall. The kind of place you only find if you're looking on purpose. Eva Wallace, divorce attorney. A friend had recommended her last year when he went through his own clean break. She had a firm handshake and a sharper instinct. Bring everything, she'd said on the phone. I handed her the black notebook. She flipped through it for 5 minutes in silence. When she looked up, her voice was calm. You want this quiet or loud? Quiet, I said. Clean. No drama. She nodded. We can do that. We laid out the steps. She'd file the paperwork discreetly. I'd be notified in 2 weeks. Chloe would receive hers at home. I just had to make sure I wasn't there when it happened. Back home, everything was the same. Chloe was still humming when she thought I wasn't listening. Still setting her phone face down. Still mentioning Cole less and less, which told me everything I needed to know. Because when people stop talking about someone abruptly, it's not because they stop thinking about them. It's because they're thinking about them too much. I made copies of documents. Scanned the essentials. Created backups on a flash drive. Packed a small bag and left it in the truck, hidden under a blanket. Every night, while she slept beside me, I wrote one more line in the notebook. Entry 24, Thursday, said she was going to her sister's. Her sister called at 6:10 p.m. to ask if she could visit us this weekend. Didn't mention seeing Chloe today. The more she lied, the quieter I became. And that made her comfortable. Which was exactly what I needed. Because when people think you're not watching, they stop hiding. The morning it happened, I left before the sun came up. No note. No noise. Just the soft click of the front door closing behind me as I stepped out with my bag already packed and the black notebook tucked under the passenger seat. For her, it was just another Tuesday. She'd wake up, pour her coffee, scroll through her phone, and assume I was somewhere in the background, doing laundry, organizing tools, reading the news like I always did. She'd probably hum while feeding the cat. Maybe plan a stop at Kohl's later. Just a normal day. But not for me. I drove 2 hours north to a small cabin by the lake, just far enough to disappear, just close enough to keep my name on the mortgage until things settled. It wasn't much. A bedroom, a porch, a coffee pot that rattled when it brewed. But it had silence, the kind that didn't press down on you. The kind you chose. At exactly 12:02 p.m., a woman from Eva Wallace's office knocked on her front door. White envelope in hand. Neutral face. Inside that envelope was everything Chloe never thought I'd say. I didn't need to be there to hear her read it. Didn't need to see her expression when she flipped through the papers. I'd already seen everything I needed on her face when she came home humming, on her screen when it lit up with his name, in her eyes when she looked everywhere but at me. At 12:17 p.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Voicemail. I didn't listen. At 12:20, a message. What is this? Where are you? I didn't reply. She called again 5 minutes later. Left another voicemail. This time, her voice trembled. I didn't need to hear it to know. Please. Can we talk? This came out of nowhere. Out of nowhere? That part almost made me laugh. I had 2 full notebooks filled with nowhere. That night, she called my brother. Left a message that went on too long. She said she didn't know what had happened. Said she just needed to talk to me. That if I was mad, we could fix it. He didn't answer. He already knew. I sat on the cabin's porch and listened to the wind move through the trees. The lake was calm. I sipped coffee and didn't feel like I was waiting for anything. Not her. Not him. Not even the next step. I wasn't angry. I wasn't grieving. I was just still. The next morning, another message from her. If you needed space, you could have just said so. Still didn't get it. This wasn't about space. It was about respect. It was about walking into my own kitchen and watching her light up at a text that wasn't mine. It was about knowing, deep down, that she was already gone, long before I ever packed a bag. She never thought I'd leave. That was her mistake. Because quiet doesn't mean weak. It means ready. It means done. She called 7 times in 3 days. Left voicemails that shifted from confusion to anger to tears. But never once did she say the word that might have meant something. Sorry. Not really. Not from the heart. She said things like, I didn't realize how far this had gone, and we just lost our spark. Lost our spark? I didn't lose anything. She stopped choosing me. That weekend, she stopped calling. That told me more than any voicemail could. The silence was finally hers to hold. The silence didn't last forever. After a few days, someone else called. Sarah Thompson, 2 houses down, mutual friend. One of those neighbors who notices more than she lets on. We hadn't spoken in months. Her voice on the voicemail was careful, but honest. Hey, I saw Chloe yesterday. She doesn't look good. Said Cole's been distant. Like he's not really talking to her anymore. Thought you should know. I didn't call back. What was there to say? Cole was never going to be her future. He was a moment. A wounded one. And Chloe, for a while, gave him comfort. But comfort isn't commitment. And when grief fades, as it always does, so does the need that made her feel wanted. She wasn't part of his life. She was part of his recovery. And when I left, when the safety net disappeared, when Cole didn't show up the way she'd hoped, what was left? Not me. Not him. Just her. Standing in a house that suddenly felt colder than she remembered. Chloe sent one last message a week later. Can we talk? Just one real conversation. But we already had. Not with words. With absence. With choices. With the space she put between us every time she left for Cole's with banana bread and came back glowing from a life I wasn't part of. One day turned into 3. 3 turned into a week. I didn't reply. I heard from Sarah again. Said Chloe started walking in the mornings. Same route, every day. Head down. Earbuds in. No smile. She wasn't humming anymore. The house stayed dark most evenings. Porch light off. The garden had gone to seed. I imagined her in the hallway, calling my name out of habit, and hearing nothing back but her own voice bouncing off the walls. Not because I wanted her to suffer, but because, for once, she was sitting in the same silence she'd left me in for months. She'd chosen excitement over steadiness, emotion over loyalty, the flicker of someone else's need over the quiet safety of being truly known. But emotions fade. And Cole? He pulled back. Slowly at first, then sharply. He stopped calling. Skipped a dinner. Said he wasn't ready for anything serious. Of course he wasn't. He never promised her a future. Never asked her to stay. Never needed her like I once did. She became a reminder not of connection, but of pain. Of what he lost. And no one clings to their grief forever. He moved on. And Chloe didn't know where to go next. I found out she called my sister. Left a message, quiet, unsteady. I didn't expect this. I feel lost. My sister, always better with words than I am, called me afterward. Told her the truth, she said. What truth? That you didn't leave because you stopped loving her, she said. You left because she stopped acting like she did. I didn't ask what Chloe said to that. I didn't need to. Because that's when it finally clicked for her. Not when Cole distanced himself. Not when I didn't come home. But when she saw it all, clear and sharp, this wasn't just about losing people. It was about losing the version of herself she liked best. The one who was chosen. Adored. Needed. Without me, and without him, she was alone with the echo. And that's the part no one warns you about. The cost of chasing feelings instead of foundations. Because feelings, like Cole's attention, are fleeting. But damage? That lingers. She tried to come back. That was the part one didn't expect. Not the guilt. That was inevitable. But the persistence. As if a single conversation, a few tears, could rewind everything. As if regret could rebuild what trust no longer recognized. She wrote again. I made mistakes. I didn't realize how far I drifted until it was too late. But it wasn't the distance that ended us. It was the moment I finally believed her. When she said, I don't think I'll love him anymore. When she smiled at her phone like it held the life she really wanted. When she let silence grow thick between us and didn't try to break it. I believed her then. And once I did, there was no going back. Love isn't just what you feel. It's who you choose, day after day. And Chloe hadn't chosen me in a long, long time. She chose Cole. With pies and soft laughter. With brushed hair and perfume. With her time, her stories, her gaze. But when I stepped away, really stepped away, the glow she carried vanished. Because the man she ran to never meant to catch her. Cole withdrew. First slowly, then without ceremony. He stopped replying right away. Canceled a dinner. Said he was trying to focus on himself. Which meant she was never part of his future. Just a chapter in his pain. She wasn't his next love. She was his distraction. And when she lost both of us, the truth finally arrived. Sharp. Cold. She was left alone in a house that used to be filled with conversation, with rhythms, with warmth. But now, it was just drywall and habits. Nothing held her anymore. I heard from my sister again. Said Chloe called, said she felt unmoored. My sister, always the calm one, told her something simple. He didn't leave because he gave up. He left because you stopped showing up. Chloe didn't answer. And I knew, right then, she finally understood. Because that's the real cost. Not the shouting. Not the fight. But standing in the middle of something you always thought would be there. And realizing you're alone. She called again. Once. Left a message. Just one last conversation. But what was left to say? We'd already said everything. With her hesitation. With my silence. With the way she turned to someone else instead of turning back toward me. I didn't call her back. Not because I was bitter. Not because I didn't still feel something deep down. But because it was finished. She drained the well long before I ever packed a bag. And all that remained was the echo of what she didn't protect. The paperwork was finalized without noise. Eva handled everything cleanly. No courtrooms, no shouting, no list of who gets which chair. Chloe didn't contest anything. She didn't even ask to meet. Maybe she still hoped I'd return. Maybe she thought if she waited long enough, I'd show up at the door with forgiveness. But I didn't. Because the truth had already been written down. In notebooks. In missed glances. In weeks of her coming home happier from someone else's house than she ever was in our own. I went back once. Just to gather a few final things, old uniforms, a photo or two, some tools she never touched. She wasn't home. The house was still, like a museum. Familiar, but unlived in. On the kitchen table sat an envelope with my name. Inside was a single line. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. I folded it. Left it on the counter. Talk? We already did. Through every day she didn't choose me. Every smile she gave to someone else. Every word she didn't say when I needed her most. I didn't lock the door behind me. That house wasn't mine to protect anymore. I live by the lake now. The cabin's small, but enough. I wake early, brew coffee, sit outside and listen to trees more than people. It's not lonely. It's peaceful. Chloe kept the house. But it's not a home to her anymore. The porch light stays off. The flowers died. She walks early, alone, always the same route. She doesn't hum. Cole's gone, too. The spark he gave her faded with his grief. She lost us both. But more than that, she lost herself. Because when you chase the feeling instead of the person, you end up alone when the moment passes. She traded something solid for something fleeting. And now? She walks through a quiet neighborhood, still looking for a story to star in. But me? I don't need a story anymore. I have peace. And that's the ending I never thought I'd get. But now that I have it, I'm never letting it go.